Hey, great to have you here. So right off the heels of the San Diego Comic-Con announcements, we got the release of this Dragon Ball GT Pan figure. We knew this one was coming eventually. We got the Goku and the Trunks from Dragon Ball GT. Obviously, Pan is kind of the third wheel of that trifecta of, the start of that story, essentially. So this one was inevitable, but surprised we got this kind of out of the blue right after the Comic-Con announcements. It feels like we had gone a little bit of time without getting any announcements, and now we're getting a couple back-to-back. Who knows what may come next, but with that, let's just kind of jump right into things here. I don't expect this to be a long video, but we want to take a look and see what Pan comes with. This is my first kind of viewpoint of each of these photos. So obviously we have our starting point here with our standard photo of Pan with her crossed arms on. This is obviously her generic look from the TV show. She has a smiling face here with her bangs down and a backpack on. It looks like that backpack could be removable. We'll have to see with that. I imagine with the taking on and off of the crossed arms, that probably makes it a little bit easier to throw on and off. But we'll have to see ultimately how the logistics for that backpack work. I imagine they may be similar to kind of other straps they've used in the past, like the Trunks sword. Maybe we don't need the buttons to attach it. It's hard to tell from this photo on if there's buttons that are attaching that backpack, or if it's essentially just straps that'll just wrap around the arm spot. So hopefully we get more details when it comes to how exactly that backpack comes on and off. Jumping to the next photo, we have the same pose, just a glanced out view of things. We have her standing, so you can see kind of her bottom part of her body, as well as I believe his name is Giru in the show. I know they list him as Gil here. It's probably just depending on translation on what exactly he went by, but essentially the robotic assistant to the team. I know there was kind of a weird role he played. It's hard for me to remember exactly what happened in GT, but I believe he was helping the team and then kind of a bad guy, but then he was actually a good guy the whole time because Trunks was just kind of testing him. So obviously a big factor if for folks that really got into GT, this character was instrumental in kind of that team of three, as I mentioned, with Goku, Pan, and Trunks. It looks like from looking at him, we may get some articulation with the arms and legs. On the listing, all it says is it comes with Gil, so I don't know exactly if they laid it out, but just judging by kind of the shoulders there, it looks like those are probably something that could rotate or move around. And then the legs, I imagine you can move those as well. It's hard to say if those are just fixed in that position, but we'll find out more on that as we kind of get that release. I'm not sure they're going to come out with any announcements prior to then, but you would think the arms and presumably legs would be the movable pieces on this figure. So other than that, we have the same kind of look for Pan, as I mentioned. No real change from the prior photo. Looking at this next photo, we have more of a grimacing face, so different faceplate here. Other than that, I think obviously we have the arms on finally this time, so we have just the clenched fists. So that's standard with pretty much all Dragon Ball figures these days. We have her more of an action pose with her knees bent, so you kind of see what those knees look like. They look okay for the most part. They don't really fit entirely with the rest of the pants, but I know with smaller figures it's a little bit harder probably to hide, do a little more blending with kind of those knee joints as well. We get another angle of her chain here. It looks like this will be kind of an extra loose piece that moves around as you pose her in different positions. So overall, pretty cool shot. Mostly kind of what we standardly would get with the grimacing face, clenched fists, in all Dragon Ball figures. All right, moving on to the next one. We have her in kind of more of a spread out pose with a blast hands. This is, once again, kind of more of a standard that you get with all Dragon Ball figures. We have a screaming face here, so that's cool to see. I think that looks really good. Obviously, we kind of get an idea of what the articulation looks like. She's able to get her hands in that blast pose where they're essentially on top of each other like a Kamehameha would be. So hopefully that winds up being the case. I know there's sometimes in the past where some of the photos kind of overextended on exactly how much movability you may have in some of those arms, but looks like we're going to have a pretty good amount of moving around when it comes to that. Next photo we have here, I think the face, it's hard to tell. I think the face is the same. We do have a different headpiece here though. Her hair, instead of being just down in front of her, it's kind of more flowing up as if she's powering up and just kind of flowing in the wind as well. So that's a cool kind of addition to having more unique faces here. I know we kind of added We started to do that a little bit recently, I think with Goku, with kind of the windswept hair, or with the 3.0 Super Saiyan Goku, we had the the hair that was pretty much blown back. So it seems like we're starting to get a little bit more of these variations in hairstyles, which is cool because if you have somebody in a certain pose in a certain battle or something like that, realistically you're going to have a little bit of variation as opposed to just having just that straight down hair there. So cool addition there. Other than that, looks like we have some blast hands here as well. So kind of our standard yellow this time blast balls that she has in her hands. I don't know if, I imagine they'll do these probably like they've done all the other ones, where they just have a separate set of hands that has that extra peg that you pretty much just plug those yellow orbs into. That seems to be kind of the standard when it comes to when they have these blast attacks recently. They have these separate hand piece that has the intention of just using those orbs with those hands. So pretty cool attack for her here too. Moving on to the next one, we have more of a fighting pose. So this is back to the grimacing face, which I believe we've gotten already. Just combining that with the windswept hair, and then more of a showing off the articulation of a kick attack we have here. It's kind of hard to see. It looks, the backside of her knee looks a little weird. Obviously, you're not normally going to see that as much, but it looks like a clear amount of plastic there in that back knee spot that looks like kind of sticking out. That looks a little strange, but as I mentioned before, I know these smaller figures having those joints not look like just big round orbs is kind of challenging at times. So overall, just kind of another action shot here. Nothing really unique. Same fighting, clenching fist hands. So something we've seen pretty much already before. Moving on to the next photo, we have her with kind of more of a silly face here with a tongue out situation. So this is more of kind of a funny pose where she's having a good time with Goku and Trunks and so forth. We have another clenching fist hand, and then the blast hand behind her, just kind of a waving hand. I imagine that's going to be a different one from the ones we had with the yellow energy attacks. It's probably just going to be the same type of thing, just without that extra peg that attaches those attacks. So only real addition here is that smiling face, which is cool to have. I know a lot of times with the Dragon Ball releases, they have these stern faces and angry and yelling faces. In reality, a lot of times there should be some inclusion of a smiling face. I know with the Krillin that we got in the past, that one, a lot of people were disappointed we didn't get a smiling face on that one. And I think the Gohan that's coming out, the regular Super Saiyan Gohan with the cape, I don't think there's a smiling face on that one. I think when he has his kind of larger pupil eyes, I think he just kind of has a stern, kind of frowny almost looking face. So it's nice to see when we get these inclusions of a smiling face to provide a different scene if you ultimately want to go with that approach. Next up, we have the photo of all three of them together. It looks like this probably implies this comes with a separate Goku head. So, as we've gotten in the past, like when we had the superhero Gohan, we got all those characters from that movie, and we got extra Gohan heads and accessories that came with him. Seems like Goku from GT is that figure for this kind of GT line that they're doing right now. Every time we get these new GT characters recently, we've been coming with a different Goku head, or came with a tail previously too. So I expect that probably to continue as we get more and more into this. I don't know if we'll get a Super Saiyan 1 at some point, so I think they're going to kind of continue this additions of adding to this Goku. I know we originally got the Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta that didn't come with any of this Goku DLC, but this Kid Goku came out afterwards. So it feels like since we've had the Kid Goku release, that's when they've started to include all these extras that kind of build a figure when it comes to additions to Goku here. Other than that, not much new here in this photo. We have the same smiling face with Pan and her kind of blasting looking hands towards the camera, and then Goku with his generic body, and as I said, the new head for Goku is probably the call out in this photo. And then last up, we just have the crew and kind of their pose. I think this is the reason why a lot of people would pick up Pan. These three are kind of the main characters, at least at the beginning of Dragon Ball GT, so if you're gonna pick up, one or two of them, it makes sense to get all three. I think that's what they're hoping for. You pick up Goku and Trunks, you're gonna want Pan as well. So this is kind of the complete image I feel like that they're trying to push to say, this is what your collection could look like if you go forward with the GT line as a whole. So pretty cool overall imaging. I'm not the biggest fan of Pan particularly, and GT I have familiarity with, but I would not rank it as my kind of my highest by any means when it comes to Dragon Ball content. So this is one that, overall, if I was to get Kid Goku and Trunks, I would probably say it makes sense to get Pan. I'm not positive if I'm going to get that Kid Goku and Trunks, so that makes me weary of moving forward with Pan. So overall, I would say this one's kind of middle of the road to below average for me. As I said, if you're getting all three of them, awesome. It makes sense to collect them, but Pan individually, not something that I necessarily feel like is absolutely needed for my collection personally. And I know a lot of people may feel differently, so awesome if you feel like this is something that you definitely want to have added. Kind of reviewing what we have included here. We have, as mentioned, we have the main body. It looks like we have 2 left and right types of hands. So when it comes to hands, it seems like it's going to be the generic fists, the blasty hands, and maybe the blasty hands with the peg. That may, for the most part, be what we get when it comes to hand variation with Pan. We'll have to see ultimately there. So, and then after hands, we have the expression part. So we went over those with the smiling face, the grimacing face, the yelling face. The hair part set. So we had the windswept hair in addition to the regular hair, the 2 blast attacks, the crossed arms, the backpack, the robot edition as well, and then the Goku face to kind of finish things off. It feels like a lot of what Pan comes with is kind of accessory pieces as far as the extra appeal to her. You have the robot, you have the extra Goku head, you have her backpack, her blast attack. So a lot of the kind of extras are really what make her unique compared to probably any other characters you may have in your collection. And as far as getting Pan, as most of you know, Premium Bandai is the site where a lot of these figures wind up needing to be purchased from. They're generally figures that are going to be less just widely popular. They're mostly the non-Goku, Vegeta, Trunks, and so forth. Wind up on Premium Bandai just because they're kind of a sell the number they make situation. So it's winds up being profitable experience. It's not something you would print a bunch of Pans and then have them sitting on shelves and not ultimately selling. So this is one of those where it's going to be a Premium Bandai. It looks like it's going to be $60 for this one. I think that's reasonable. I feel like that's kind of high priced for the size of figure we have for her. Let's see what it says for her height. It says approximately 3.5 inches. So yeah, that's a really small figure for $60. I think it's really those additions of having the robot. I can't imagine how tall that robot is if she's 3.5 inches tall. But you have the robot, you have the Goku head, her extra accessories. I think the prior Pan from Superhero Movie was $50, which that felt really overpriced. So $60 feels like in line with what they've done. I don't necessarily think it warrants that price, but if I was making a guess on what it would cost, that seems like, as I said, in line with kind of their tracking of their history of what they've priced stuff in the past. So makes sense there. Looks like this one is ultimately going to come out, at least in the US, in January, and pre-orders open on Friday. So this Friday, so May 17th. And then from there, typically I expect that sometime over the next month is when they'll close them. So definitely, if this is something you're interested in, jump on grabbing Pan. I probably personally lean towards not picking her up, but as I said, a lot of people are really big fans of GT and collecting kind of that completionist of that line, especially those main integral characters of the show. So I get if folks want to pick her up, and having those extra pieces and having her being kind of representing a lot of what GT is makes sense. So let me know what you guys think, though. Is this something that you personally want to have added to your collection? Is this something that you think you maybe could pass on as well? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to talk about kind of your thoughts there. But other than that, thanks you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.